start before the beginning of time. No point of reference. You spoke to the dark, fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies born, and the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain. Syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science will follow the sound of your voice. Ooh. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If creation still obeys you, so will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still fall short, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, chased on my heart through all of my failure and pride. Where you created the light of the world, to darkness too. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. We lost your life so I could find it. If you left them way behind you, so will I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. What measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the world behind. Now, isn't that just a great promise? Yeah. But isn't that such a great promise that, like, all of our failures just completely just disappear? They just dissipate into nothing. That's awesome.
Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus.
Yeah.
How sweet is your name, Lord. How good you are. I love to sing your name, Lord. I love to sing who you are. And 10 could not hold you. The veil so before you. You silence the post of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, the praise of your glory. Glory to life again. You have no rival, you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus.
All right. All right. Yeah. Okay, so how many of you are actually excited to be here? Oh yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know, I just got so tired and so lonely of just worshiping, just an empty church. It feels so good now. Okay, cool. So we have 2 more songs for you guys. And you guys are doing great. I can hear your voices. And since there's so little of you, I want you guys to fill this room. You know, pretend like Jesus is right here, and you just want to sing to him. Okay? Are you hurting, broken, thin? Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Yes, he is. Yeah. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. Come today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joy. From the ashes a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Yeah. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Let him hear you. So what a Savior, isn't he wonderful? Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Bow down before him, for he is Lord. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. So what a Savior, isn't he wonderful? Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Bow down before him, for he is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Bear your cross as you wait for the crown. Tell the world of the treasure you found. Amen. Right there where you guys are still in worship. Let me just pray for you real quick. So I want to pray over this group right now. I want to pray over everybody in this room, and I want to pray to everybody, or pray for everybody that's watching us right now. God, we come to this awesome Wednesday afternoon. God, we just pray that all nervousness and all fear just dissipates along with our failures, Lord, and that we leave them behind us. They have no purpose. They have no right to be held on to. God, I just pray, Lord, that as this, this virus spreads and as it, just throws panic around, don't let us forget that you are the one in control. Remind us that you are the one holding us in the palm of your hand, in those awesome, strong hands, God. I just pray, God, that we just leave everything that does not belong to you behind us. Lord Jesus, and in your name, amen. So we have one more song for you guys. Yeah, and it's a song we all know, we all love, and we want you guys to sing along.
And he is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your reflections are for me. And oh, how he loves us all. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us all. And he is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your reflections are for me. And oh, how he loves us all. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us all. unforeseen kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves. And He is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of His wind and mercy. Yeah, He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves us. Oh, how He loves.
Amen. All right. Yeah. All right. Welcome Pastor Rich up on the stage.
I'm just playing with you. I'm just playing with you. You ever feel like you're going through life and you're like, what is he saying? I'm listening to the person at the McDonald's drive-through through the, as if it's not bad enough to hear them, through the microphone system. You're also hearing them through a mask. It's crazy. It's crazy. Guys, I got to tell you, I am thrilled to be with you. Man, it's so good for my heart to see real faces. Yes, woo! I love it. I love it. Speaking of masks, we have some contest winners. I said he who or she who brings the best mask is going to get a prize, and we do have a prize. I had an independent judge determine who they were, sent pictures out, and we got two of them for the guys. Dylan, will you get up here and just actually go right there to Mrs. Walter? She's got something. It's a $20 Visa card. So we're trying to think now, what kind of gift, I could give you a gift to go to Chick-fil-A, but probably half of you aren't eating fast food yet. I was thinking about that. Every time I pass my credit card to them and they touch it with their gloved hand, they're protected, but that gloved hand has touched 4,000 other people's credit cards. So I'm getting it back and I'm like, okay, wipe my hands. We're going to take care of you. Okay, for the girls, Suhaidi, you got it. Did you make that yourself? Someone else made it for you? Very cool. It's a message of hope on her face mask, so it's very cool. Come on in here, $20 gift card, actually a Visa card. But I'm thrilled to have you guys. I'm thrilled to have you guys online. We're still going on Facebook Live, so you guys can have a seat and make yourselves, you can actually sit down. You can. Well, I wanted to let you guys know, for those of you who are showing up, and I think we got a great group here. Next week, we're going to launch Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Anybody know what that means? New series. Next week, we're going to start a new series, and it's titled Lies We Believe. Lies We Believe. Now, if there's a particular lie that you sense that students are believing, then I want to challenge you to text it to me, and we'll work it into one of the messages. Because I want to hear what are some of the lies that maybe you guys are believing. We want to talk about that. Because I believe that the things that we believe, if they're lies, can actually destroy us. So we want to identify them and say, okay, let's eliminate these, let's think truth. So lies we believe for our next series. I also have a couple announcements to make for anybody here who's a graduated senior. Okay, if you're out on Facebook, put in, okay, graduated senior last year, not 4 years ago. Okay, if you're on Facebook Live, type your name in there. What I want to challenge you guys is, hold on, we understand, we feel your pain. You feel like you've lost a lot, and in reality, you guys have. You've lost the prom, you've lost the banquet, and you're like, come on, Pastor Rich, I already feel bad enough. I don't want to get more depressed. You lost camp, you lost Sticky Faith, and so we understand your pain. So as Aftershock leaders, we're going to do something special for you. So I want to mention 2 things we're going to do for graduated seniors. We're going to do a grad night that's going to happen on August the 5th. And what that's going to mean is that you guys are going to get to share your stories and your advice for those that are following you. So if you're a graduated senior, make sure you set time aside to give us your advice on that night. I know you got a bunch of you guys over here, so let us hear your advice and your story. If you want to be a part of that graduation night, then I want to tell you to contact either Sky Rodriguez or Robert Mota. You can do that on Facebook, or you can text them if you know their number, but they'll help you walk through your testimonies. So get excited about that. I can't wait for that. And the other thing we're doing is we're starting something new just for graduates. And it's called Aftershock After Hours. And what's going to happen is starting July 15th through August the 5th, that's 4 Wednesday nights, we're going to, after Aftershock closes down at 9, we're going to spend an hour just with you seniors, graduated seniors. And we're going to talk about subjects that are tough, and they're very real. So we're going to just give you some help as you're going out there. And it's just going to be us leaders hanging out with you guys. There's going to be some special food involved, and it's just going to be a fun time. So set aside, if you're watching online, maybe mom and dad are saying, I don't feel comfortable with you with you coming right yet. I want you to know that this is something that's going to be even less people, so it may be a safe place mom and dad will let you come and be a part of. So keep in tune. We're going to keep announcing that. But I got to tell you, it is great to see you guys in person. And it's like, whoa, my heart feels so full tonight. I've been longing for this moment. And I think I've been longing for this moment because I know in my heart that we were created for fellowship. We're created for connection. In fact, connection is so crucial that people will die without it. I want to share a time when I decided to isolate myself and how tough it was, okay? I actually went up to the hill country in San Antonio area, and I decided to stay at an old shack in the side of a mountain there, and I don't remember any of the details. I don't remember if Maria Mia, my wife, brought me, or if someone else dropped me off, but I was going to be there alone. I had no vehicle, and I remember someone else was going to come the next day, and I'd be with people again. And I remember that whole day, all I was anxious. I'm out there at this little cabin in the middle of nowhere, and every little creek in the woods, I'm like, what was that? I'm like, oh, was that a bear? And there are no bears up there. But I'm thinking, I'm going to die. Something's going to happen to me. And I kept thinking, I need my people. I need to be surrounded with people. I barely made it through one day. Thank God I didn't have to spend the night there alone, or I'd have been scared spitless. And this is the same guy who told his mom that he wanted to be a mountain man. Like, I don't know what happened. But I understand this need, this deep need for each of us to be connected, to be with people. In fact, if you were to Google this, or search this on the internet, you would find that there's dangers in being isolated. You'll find that there's tons of articles and scientific studies that point to the dangers of being isolated or disconnected from people. And I think one of the studies that attracted me the most was a study that was done on POWs, prisoners of war, that had returned from the Vietnam War. And I think this was so big to me because I was 15 years old at the time when these soldiers were returning. And I saw as they were returning that they were very different than when they left. And then I heard stories of those who were actually in prisoner of war camps and how they were isolated. Even though there may have been 100 other prisoners of war there, they didn't get to see them. They were taken out individually for exercise if they got any outside time at all. If they saw another prisoner, it was only at a distance. They weren't allowed to speak to each other. And this isolation started, as they did these interviews with these prisoners of war, they talked about how the isolation was tearing them down, was just crushing them. In fact, that connection, that need for connection was so important for them that they had to come up with creative ways, extreme measures to communicate with each other, because they weren't allowed to do it audibly. If they tried to do it audibly, they would be beaten. And so they would come up with crazy stuff like tapping on the floor, the Morse code, little taps, and it had to be so quiet that only the person in the next cell could hear you. And then that person would pass that information, that communication on to the next person and on down the line, and they would communicate with each other back and forth. And it was that tapping on the floor, that communication, that connection that caused them to feel connected and helped many of them make it through their time as prisoners of war. Some of them learned to just scratch on the wall because the guards started catching the tapping. And so they would scratch on the walls like the sounds of rats making on the walls. And they went to these extreme measures to be able to communicate and talk with each other because it was so needed. I read another story where somehow one of the soldiers managed to get in a small pocket Bible. And so what he did is he would take, each day he'd take a page and he'd rip it out of that Bible and he'd fold it up in this tiny little square. And then when he went out to the drinking area where they would go drink and eat their slop for the day, he would drop that in a certain place and the next soldier would come and pick it up and take it back and they would read it and he would have his little notes written in there. And it was passed from one soldier to another, and this is the way they communicated. This is the way they connected. And those soldiers who didn't have at least that form of connection, they had a tougher time readjusting when they came back to society. It was obvious that they needed connection. It's obvious that we need connection. We need that type of ability to interact with each other. Maybe you've been feeling that way. Maybe this COVID-19 and this epidemic and this pandemic and this time of isolation at home has kind of felt like a prison wall crushing in on you, and you're like, I'm so glad to be out tonight. I'm glad you guys are out tonight. And there may be this, you may be feeling the effects of disconnection. We need each other. We need each other. Desperately, we need each other. In fact, if I could give a title to the message tonight, it would be this: we need each other. Stay connected. Guys, if you hear nothing else tonight, hear this: stay connected. The Bible reinforces this idea of a need for connection. In Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, we hear the story of God creating man. And man had this amazing relationship with God. I mean, of all people, this amazing God, he had that relationship. But even in spite of that relationship, God says something interesting. He says it's not good for this guy to be alone. So what did he do? Anybody want to tell me? What did he do? He created woman. He created woman. He knew that humanity needed connection. We need each other. The early church preachers taught about it. They called the church a body. This group of Christian believers, they said, it's important for us to stay connected to the body. They used a physical body as an example: hands connected to arms, feet connected to legs. If you sever one of them, you're going to lose that connection and you're going to die. One of my favorite verses is one that's found in Hebrews, and it goes like this: this is not the time to pull away and neglect meeting together. This time in pandemic, this time in COVID isn't a time to pull away and neglect meeting together. No, it's probably not going to look like it did before. It obviously isn't. We got red X's between the seats here, between you guys. But it's not a time to disconnect. It's not a time to disconnect from God, nor is it a time to disconnect from your Christian friends. The Bible goes on to say this, that some have formed the habit of doing this, disconnecting. Because we need each other, the Bible says. We need to be connected. It goes on to say, in fact, we should come together even more frequently, eager to encourage and urge each other onward as we anticipate the day dawning. We need each other. And right about now, you're sitting here and you're probably thinking, hey, Pastor Rich, you're stating the obvious. I already know that. I need my friends, I need my family. If I wouldn't at least have them during this time, I don't know what I would do. But I would go on to say that we need not just our friends and family, but we need other fellow believers. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I believe that we can become comfortable with the disconnect. We can be comfortable not going to a place where we might connect with another believer. It's kind of like hypothermia. Does anybody know what hypothermia is? Okay, you're all nodding, yeah. And it's dying from being frozen to death. And they say that if you're going to die, that's probably one of the best ways to die. You actually, your body starts to feel cold, and so you try to move to keep warm, and after you can no longer keep yourself just warm by moving, then your body involuntarily goes into shaking fits to try to keep warm. You just start shivering. Maybe you've been there. And eventually, though, it moves from an active fight against death to an understanding, your body understands it's going to die, and so it starts shutting down, leaving only your most valuable organs with blood flow. And eventually those will shut down as well, and you just feel like you want to go to sleep. And you fall asleep and you never wake up. I want to suggest that we as a nation, as students, are becoming hypothermic Christians. We're getting maybe a little too comfortable with this idea of being disconnected from the body. So how do we, and when I think about that, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. As I look through Facebook, I see two types of people. I see those that this whole epidemic has caused them to go deeper into the Word and get more connected to God. And then as I'm watching on YouVersion, I love to go to YouVersion Bible app and see what you guys are doing. It's so good for my heart to see, okay, they're reading this Bible plan. And they're doing it with some friends. They're connected. They're connected. It's so good for my heart to see that. But then I also see others who, by their posts, I can tell are disconnecting. They're making decisions that they said they would never make with their boyfriend or girlfriend. They're doing things that they said they'd never do when they were connected to the body, when they had people challenging them and saying, don't do that. They had that connection and that help and that hope, and so they didn't make these decisions. So you see these two different types of people reacting in two different ways during this time. And I believe it's because we're disconnected. So how do we fight? How do we fight this disconnect between Christian brothers and sisters in the middle of this quarantine? How do we do it in the middle of a pandemic? How do we stay fearless without being foolish? Well, I think one step was what you guys did today. We're meeting together. I talked to some of your parents and you're like, I'm concerned about this, but I'm so glad that you're taking the steps to social distance and wear masks. But even this is a little risky. But you guys have decided that this is important to me. I need this. You're being fearless without being foolish. I want to give you a couple of ways that are going to help you move away from isolation and move toward connection, even in the middle of this terrible time we're going through, okay? And here's the first one. Recognize that isolation is real and dangerous. Know it's real. Know it's our natural tendency to isolate. Know it can happen. Know it's real, but also recognize that it's dangerous. When I was 19 years old, I graduated from high school. Actually, I was 17 years old. I graduated from high school. And instead of going to college, like so many of you guys are doing, I decided to get a job. And I got a job at a nuclear power plant, building a nuclear power plant. And as I'm working there, my dad was the main boss at the plant. And my dad warned me. He said, son, I want you to know you're stepping into an environment that is dangerous. An environment that's going to cause you to want to disconnect from your church family, from your Christian friends, because it's a rough place. And I remember thinking, Dad, it's never going to happen. I had just graduated from a school where I was part of a program where we'd go to inner city churches and give programs about Jesus Christ. And we led people to the Lord. It was so exciting. And I'm thinking, this will never happen to me. But it did. It happens. I started to disconnect from my Christian brothers and sisters as I became more connected with the people that I worked through. I started to make decisions that I would have never made a year before. It's real. This disconnect from God, this disconnect from our Christian friends is real. Recognize that it's real, but also recognize that it's dangerous. Remember what I said that the Bible describes this connection like a body? You know, a hand connected to a wrist connected to the elbow. It sounds like a song or something, right? It's so true. I wanted my grandchildren to get a picture of this. So I sat them down and I spent like a whole day writing a story. And it's called The Right Hand. And sometime I'll read it to you guys. But I decided that I was going to make this story a little bit more graphic. So as I was telling this story about this right hand who decides that he no longer wants to be connected to the body, and this right hand takes a rubber band, a real tight rubber band, puts it around his wrist and leaves it on there, and how the blood flow eventually starts to stop. And his hand starts to turn black until one day the hand got what he wanted. He got to be disconnected from the body because he rotted and fell off. And so while I was telling this story, I had this plastic hand that I bought at the Halloween store, and I had a long sleeve shirt on, and so I stuck it in my shirt while I'm going like this, and I come out and I said, and the right hand finally got his wish, and I went like that, and my right hand flopped out of my shirt and landed on the floor, and the kids are going, ah! No! You know, it freaked them all out. It was all bloody and nasty, and they're like, Paul, did you have to do that? And maybe I went a little bit too far, but I got the picture across. When we disconnect from the body, it's dangerous. We can die. And it may not be a physical death, but it almost always results in a spiritual death, a spiritual decay. Recognize that it happens. Recognize that it's dangerous. And then I would say the second step to moving away from isolation and moving back to connection is confessing your complacency. It's saying, okay, I recognize that I'm drifting. And it's saying, God, I'm sorry. I don't want this to continue. God, give me the courage to take steps to get reconnected to you. Give me courage to get connected to my fellow Christian believers. Don't stay disconnected. When you know you're there, confess it to God. Confess it to a friend. Let them know that you're disconnected. And then thirdly, I would challenge you to rebel. Rebel! You know, that word is really popular right now, to rebel. In fact, it seems like it's one of the most popular words going on around here. It's like, let's go have a riot. Let's do this or do that. But my feelings behind this is that as Christians, I sense that our motives and our focus for rebellion may be skewed. But I do believe we're called to rebel. But I believe we're called to rebel against a very real enemy. And that enemy is not a person, a group of people. That enemy is Satan. And I believe we need to rebel against him. I believe we need to fight against him. I believe we need to rebel against Satan's methods, especially. And I believe the single biggest method that Satan uses is division. A pulling apart of a connection that's powerful. I believe that God is saying, guys, don't give in to that. Rebel against that. Fight back. Fight back against this idea of disconnection. So how do you do that? How do you fight back against this feeling of being disconnected? How do you continue to make the choice to be connected? Well, I want to give you a couple of ideas. And here's the first one. Choose every day to get back in the battle, to get back in the fight. There's some days when I wake up and I just don't feel like doing it. We'll go to Walmart, and I'm standing there with my mask on, as funny as it might be. And I know in my heart that I should talk to this young lady I know who's really just probably stressed out from also wearing a mask, not just for an hour, but for 8 hours a day. And she could probably use a word of encouragement. And God's speaking into my ear, and he's saying, talk to her. Tell her about my love for her. And all I can do is think in my mind is, I really don't feel like it. I'm just tired. The mask is, I can't communicate clearly. I can make all kinds of excuses. What I've found is that if I don't decide every morning to get back in the fight, this step away from God and this step away from my Christian brothers and sisters, it just gets bigger and bigger until I'm way distant. I have to decide every morning, I'm going to be back in the fight. I'm going to get into my Bible, and I'm going to spend time reading His Word. I'm going to open up the YouVersion. I'm going to text some friends and say, hey, you want to do a Bible plan with me? When I'm taking those steps every day to get back in the fight, I'm stronger. I'm able to have the energy to do what I know God's calling me to do, even if it's with the Walmart cashier. Choose every day to get back into the fight. No, there's going to be the temptation to disconnect, but choose every day to get back into the fight. And secondly, assemble. Assemble. Come together. Meet with other Christians. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this means you come back to the church building, because the church is so much more than four walls. I'm saying be the church. Be the church every single day. Live it out. Live like you really believe in Jesus. I want to challenge you to do things in a way that you may not have done them before. This may look different, but be the church. For instance, if your daily activity involves a jog, maybe recognizing that you need the help of fellow believers, maybe you get 2 or 3 of your friends to go jogging with you. Okay, you're a couple feet away, you're outside, you're safe. Exercise is good, the sun kills the coronavirus, and you jog together. And as you're jogging, you bring God into the picture. Talk about what God's doing in your hearts. Talk about where you're stumbling. Find people to do things with that and to encourage you and lift your spirits. Assemble, get together with other believers. It may not be in the big church. I think this is a wonderful way that you guys are doing it, but it may need to look different. But don't stop doing it. Maybe it means if you're a fisherman. How many of you guys like to fish here? Yeah, right? Maybe it means you invite someone to go fishing with you. Okay? You're out on the water, you're on opposite ends of the boat, or you're out at the jetties and you're 12 feet apart, and you're just spending some time fishing, and then you use that time. You're doing it with a believer. You're assembling with Christians. You use that time to talk about God. Talk about what you need from Him. Pray for each other. Guys, this may seem weird, but it's necessary. It's what saves us. Assemble. Share your lives with the people around you. And then share your lives with hurting people. Be the church. Be the church. You know, one of my favorite, that's the third idea I want you to hang on to. Be the church. You know, one of my favorite descriptions of Christians is the word ambassadors. What that means is I'm a representative for Jesus Christ. So if I'm going to be the church, I'm going to represent him well. What I put up on Facebook is going to be something that draws attention to him, not to myself. It's going to point people to Jesus Christ. I'm being an ambassador to him. What have you been reflecting on social media with your posts? Division and hate, or peace and unity? Which one of those things do you think best reflect Jesus? Division and hate, or peace and unity? You're an ambassador. Represent him well. Another one of the descriptions used to describe Christians is servants. Who have you been sacrificially serving during this epidemic? Maybe you should consider, we've done this and it's cool. It's a cool thing to do. Maybe you should take a meal to someone who's struggling. Maybe it's someone who you know has been diagnosed with COVID. You know that they can't even get out to go to the grocery store. So you pick up a bag of groceries and you set it at their door. Text them when you're back in the car and tell them, I left you something. Who are you serving during this time? Maybe it's noticing that person that you're seeing drifting. You can see from their Facebook posts or their Instagram posts that they're drifting from God and his people. And so instead of just texting them, you actually pick up the phone and call them, and they can hear your voice, and you can encourage them back to a connected life. Maybe you sacrifice your time to do that. Maybe this is a crazy idea. Maybe it's talking to your neighbors and saying, hey, I know that you guys have been housebound for a long time, and I also know that you like camping. Why don't you let me take care of your dog while you go on a vacation? Look for needs around you and serve sacrificially. There's something cool that happens when you do that. When we do what we're called to do as a church, when we're ambassadors and we're servants, there's an automatic connection that's made with spiritual forces and with fellow believers that brings healing to our lives. It brings connection to our lives. It brings connection to others who are disconnected. Be the church. Be ambassadors. Be servants. I want to challenge you guys. You may have heard some of these things and you're saying, okay, I've got some growing to do. I know I do. It's going to be a whole lot easier if you do it through connection. Find someone who will hold you accountable. Challenge them to join you in this walk into becoming a more connected follower of Jesus Christ. Not just to God, but also to your brothers and sisters. Fight the drift towards spiritual isolation. Stay connected, guys. Stay connected. No one understands this need for a spiritual connection better than Jesus Christ. On the last day of his life, he was foreseeing what was about to happen to him, and he knew that not only was he going to die on a cross, but that he was going to be disconnected, pulled away from his Father. He was going to be isolated from all that was good. And Jesus, as he's praying to his Father, is begging him, God, I know this is going to be bad. This is going to hurt. Don't make me walk through this disconnection from you. If you can take this away from me, take it away from me. Jesus understands the dangers of isolation and disconnection. But he took that walk to death, that walk into isolation and disconnection, so that you could be connected to Jesus, could be connected to God. It was only through his death and resurrection that we were able to be connected to a perfect God. When God looks at me, he doesn't look at all my mistakes and all my mess ups. He looks at me and he sees the sacrifices of his son, who was willing to be isolated and disconnected from his Father in order to save me. Jesus understands the dangers of disconnection, and he walked into it in order to save us. If you're here tonight and you don't know Jesus personally, don't leave here without making that decision to follow him. When he looks at you, he sees something beautiful. Because of the death of his son, because his son was willing to walk into disconnection. Will you turn your heart over to him tonight? I want to pray with you. Heavenly Father, I thank you for these amazing students. It's so good for my heart to be back with them again. I thank you for those that are online and listening, from my middle school students to the Fortress, the older students. Lord, I just thank you for each one of them. Lord, I pray that you would put inside of each of us a crazy, strong desire to stay connected. I see in my own life the dangers of being disconnected. Heavenly Father, may we not disconnect from you. May we not disconnect from each other. Show us creative ways to stay connected even in the middle of this. We need your help, Lord. Direct our thoughts. Give us creative ideas. Lord, if there's someone here tonight who doesn't know you personally, I pray that they would reach out to you and simply invite you in. You want a connection with them. You are willing to be disconnected from your Father in order to have a connection created for us. I pray, Lord, that tonight anyone who is at that place who doesn't know you would take that step towards you and simply say, God, come in, take control. And I know you're faithful to do that. Your word says that you are a gentleman who knocks at the door of our heart. He doesn't force his way in. He knocks. And when we open the door, you come in and you say you'll eat a meal with us. You'll get to know us intimately. You'll connect with us and give us a connection to an amazing family. If you're here tonight and you don't have that connection with a family, a church family, or with God, simply say, Jesus, I believe that you are the Son of God. Come in and take control of my life. I believe that you died to save my sins. I accept you tonight. And I ask this in Jesus' powerful name. Amen. I love you guys. I love you guys out there too. And I'm thrilled to be back with you. Looking forward to next week, a new series. And we've got some questions that we're going to talk in small group. We're going to have small group right here. And after the cameras go down, we'll split up and do that. But for those of you guys who are watching online, the questions are also going to be up online. And if the questions don't stay up long enough for you, you can go to my Instagram account, and I have them up there as well as my Facebook account. So I love you guys. We'll see you next week.